The virtue of sharing. Noelle plucked cautiously at the third string on her lute. It was definitely out of tune. Adventuring in Broceliande might be glorious for the Knights of Dawn, but it was a terrible fate to befall a troubadour. Dank clouds of muggy fog rolled unpredictably through the trees, playing havoc with her tunings. It appeared the Valorn hated good music almost as much as it hated people. She looked across to where her companion, Cerise, was sharpening her sword with a whetstone. Glory takes many forms, but Cerise was what most folk imagined when they thought of the Dornish. As tall as any man, with shoulders broad enough to put a bear to shame, the great sword she was maintaining was so big Noelle could barely lift it. The two had been fierce friends for years, ever since Cerise had passed a test of mettle by defeating the Earl de Boisver's champion in single combat. They'd adventured together through Semaholm and the Barrens, and now here they were in this dark forest. "Will they come, do you think? The armies?" Cerise asked, as much to make conversation as anything. She knew Noelle was working on a new piece, but there was no chance her friend would let her hear it until it was ready to be performed. "I thought you were planning to kill the Valorn spawn yourself." Noelle grinned at her friend, knowing the banter would always be taken in jest and wanting to lift her friend's spirits. "Ha!" Cerise shook her head, laughing at the prospect. "Might as well take on the forest itself. I'd have to live 1,000 lives to win that battle." "Just think of it, though. You could clear the forest of trees, start your own noble house. It could be a house of giants. You wouldn't give anyone a test they could pass unless they stood 6 feet tall. Every knight who sought to join you would be challenged to drive back the Valorn and claim more lands for your house. You'd be glorious, the greatest earl in Dawn. Every noble would go weak at the thought they might be your one true love." Cerise snorted in derision. It might beat marching round Dawn with a half-competent squire and a half-terrible troubadour for company, she countered. She put down the whetstone and picked up the old cloth she used to polish the blade. "We're here for the glory, not the land. This place belongs to the Navarre." "Who says so?" said Noelle, rising to her feet with an impish grin on her face. "No one has ever claimed this forest for the Empire. Dark Ranging is no more Navarre lands than Ossium was Varushkin. Why shouldn't you rule over this? Strive, toil, and claim the just rewards for your labours, Earl Cerise." Noelle ducked as her friend hurled the polishing cloth at her friend with a deadly accuracy. Both of them were still laughing about it by the time Hubert came to tell them that dinner was ready. Overview. The National Assemblies of Dawn and Highguard have come together around a shared appreciation of the importance of love and glory in bringing people to virtue and the way. As a result of the mandate raised by Eurona of the Chantry and enacted by the Highborn Assembly, for the next year the congregations of each assembly have been paying particular attention to the statements raised by the other. Highborn celebrants are keen to hear the words of Dornish priests in the synod and vice versa. There is much interest in the statements of both assemblies, but at present the one issue that arouses the strongest feelings is the situation in Broceliande. Both assemblies have opted to support the attempt to seize the region of Dark Ranging from the Valorn before the enemy recovers enough of its strength to make that victory impossible. Now, there is an opportunity for both assemblies to draw inspiration from the methods used by the other. Before that happens, though, there is one small matter that must be resolved first: the inquisition of those responsible for the Druge intrusion into imperial affairs. Inquisition and betrayal. Concerns have been raised regarding the inquisition of those responsible for the Druge involvement in Broceliande. The Navarre Assembly has committed to holding those responsible accountable. In the months before the autumn equinox 383 year of the Empire, Simon of Harros and a great forest orcs herbalist named Ulla Redstaff proposed a commission for houses of healing to be built in Eleriel. However, before either group would agree to provide the backing these houses required, they demanded an unequivocal statement of principle from the Navarre Assembly, denouncing the decision to accept the age of the Druge and calling for those involved to be investigated and punished by the Synod. The Navarre Assembly did exactly that, with a statement raised by Harwin Hollowwatcher condemning the actions, but also stating that those responsible for the alliance have made themselves known and welcome inquisition. The suggestion of the statement is that those involved face inquisition by the Navarre Assembly, but neither Simon of Harros nor Ulla Redstaff believe that this is appropriate. On the assumption that those responsible are Navarre, both Simon and Ulla insist that any inquisition must be carried out in public by a member of another nation. Simon of Harros argues that it should be a highborn inquisitor who conducts the proceedings. If not highborn, then an Urizeni priest would be acceptable. Both nations have suffered grievous losses at the hands of the Druze in recent years. He hopes that any virtuous citizen of either nation would be eager to get to the bottom of what occurred. Indeed, Simon points out, the Imperial Inquisitor themselves, Gele Netherwatch, is a citizen of Urizen. Perhaps they would be prepared to address the sensitive situation given their responsibility to oversee and coordinate the use of Inquisition in service of the Empire. Both are disappointed that the Imperial Conclave chose to ignore the call of the Navarre Assembly to condemn the alliance between the Eternal Arhalogen and the Orcs of the Malum. But there is still time. Likewise, Simon is eager to know which Imperial magistrate has been assigned to look into the matter to see if there is a case for treason. Whatever happens, both Simon and Ulla are in agreement. They are both eager to support the commission of the Houses of Healing in Broceliande, but only if a thorough public inquisition of those involved in the alliance is carried out by a highborn or Urizeni inquisitor. Actions have consequences. Those who made allies of the Druze must face repercussions for their actions. We urge those responsible for securing this alliance to deliver themselves for judgment by the Synod, and we ask the Conclave to condemn the alliance between the Eternal Arhalogen and the Orcs of the Malum. They have made themselves known to the Navarre Assembly and welcome Inquisition. Harwin Hollowatcher, Autumn Equinox 383YE, upheld. Greater majority 383 to 0. Glory and treasure. Both the Highborn and Dornish assemblies can enact a mandate to encourage the conquest of Broceliande. A year ago, the troubadour Noël de Boisvert spoke passionately about the glory to be won facing the twisted beasts of the Valorn. René de Rondel took up the banner, and with the support of the Dornish Assembly, they enacted a mandate, urging the Knights Errant and Questing Knights of Dawn to come to Broceliande to help the Navarre protect their homes. For a year, Dornish glory seekers worked tirelessly to slow the Valorn, encouraged by the support of the Houses of Dawn, who helped fund the Knights, ensuring that those who risked their life were rewarded with treasure. Having taken advantage of every opportunity to slow the Valorn, Noël de Boisvert asks how much more glorious it would be now to take the land back from this terrible foe. Rather than rest on their laurels, they ask the Dornish houses to continue their support, but to focus it towards this new goal. The victories achieved by our knights has enabled our brave Navarre allies to stem the tide of the Valorn advance. Now comes the moment for true glory, a chance to secure a permanent victory. We send, named priest, with 50 doses of Liao to urge every Dornish noble house to reward any knight that fights to reclaim dark ranging from the enemy. Synod Mandate, Dawn Assembly. If this mandate is enacted, then for the next year, until the start of the Winter Solstice 384YE, any Dornish military unit that supports a Dornish Highborn or Navarre army that is engaged in dark ranging will gain additional rewards. 1 additional crown and 2 random herbs. Several Highborn congregations are fascinated by this approach, although their reputation for piety makes some assume that Highguard is a stark and frugal land. The truth is that Ancient Nation is rich and prosperous. The chapters of Highguard could afford to encourage and support their guardians in the fight in Broceliande, using exactly the same approach that the Dornish have done, rewarding those who show ambition and courage in pursuit of glory. Our enemy in Broceliande is weak. Now is the vigilant moment to strike. Let us tear out this poison in our neighbour's field and secure a permanent victory. We send, named priest, with 50 Liao to urge every Highborn chapter to reward any guardian that fights to reclaim dark ranging from the enemy. Synod Mandate, Highborn Assembly. If this mandate is enacted, then for the next year, until the start of the winter solstice 384 year of the Empire, any Highborn military unit that supports a Dornish, Highborn or Navarre army that is engaged in dark ranging will gain additional rewards. 1 additional crown and a dose of Liao. Love and sacrifice. The Dornish Assembly can enact a mandate to match the congregations of Highguard in the commitment to fighting the Valorn. At the autumn equinox, Hazel-Elpenny of the Shattered Tower raised a mandate in the Highborn Assembly, urging the congregations of Highguard to continue their support for the reconquest of dark ranging for the year ahead. The judgment received the backing of the greater majority of the Assembly, ensuring it could overcome the doubts of those who questioned the wisdom of such an action when no Imperial armies are present to support. As a result of Hazel-Elpenny's work, every congregation in Highguard will take on board a heavy sacrifice. For the next year, adventurous pilgrims will travel to Brokeliand to directly fight the Valorn spawn, while less martial congregations provide valuable supplies to the forces massing there. As a result, every congregation in Highguard suffers a loss of 2 synod votes and 1 dose of Liao. However, it will provide assistance equivalent to 20 strength for every congregation so affected. Over the last season, this represents just over 1,400 additional strength. These effects will last until the start of Winter Solstice 384 Year of the Empire, a year from now. Just as the Dornish support for their knights has inspired the Highborn, so many Dornish congregations are questioning why they could not imitate the example of their Highborn friends and take on a similar sacrifice. To this end, Noel de Boisvert has proposed a new mandate for the Dornish Assembly to consider, one urging each congregation to take the sacrifice of supporting the reconquest of dark ranging. A great life leaves a legend. The defeat of the Valorn in dark ranging is a legend that will echo through the ages. We send, named priest, with 50 Liao to urge every Dornish congregation to sacrifice whatever they can spare to defeat the Valorn. Synod Mandate, Dorn Assembly. If this mandate is enacted, then every Dornish congregation will experience a loss of 2 votes and 1 Liao. In return, each affected congregation will provide 20 strength to support Imperial armies campaigning in dark ranging. Over the last season, this represents just over 400 additional strength. These effects will last until the start of Winter Solstice 384 Year of the Empire, a year from now. If no Imperial army attacks the Valorn this season, then the congregations will focus on helping the people of the steadings recover from their losses over the last year, offering compassionate aid and support to help them rebuild. But nobody came. The Highborn Assembly could enact a mandate to commit the soldiers of their nation to fight in Brokeliand. Following the autumn equinox and the mandate enacted by Hazel-Elpenny, the Highborn congregations took on the burden of supporting the Imperial armies fighting in dark ranging. Those congregants who could travel to fight did so. Those that could not sent what provisions they could to support their military brethren. They came to dark ranging, expecting to throw their support behind the Navarre armies as they fought to reclaim the forests from the Valorn. But that army never came. The efforts of the Highborn congregations were not wasted. They are able to focus on helping the Navarre who have suffered from the Valorn attacks to rebuild, and assist in the battle against the heirs of Taruniel. But now they are here, there is a growing awareness of the scale of what they are facing. Hazel-Elpenny has strengthened their resolve to remain there for the coming seasons, and they are still keen to drive human destiny forwards, to free souls trapped in the Valorn, and to face the greatest threat that faces the Empire. But they are conscious that it will require a major undertaking by Imperial armies to achieve such a goal. A single army that entered dark ranging could be decimated. It would need to be a major undertaking, a serious commitment of Imperial force. In simple military terms, it would be best to strike with overwhelming force. The last thing the Empire can afford to do right now is a protracted campaign against the Valorn under the baneful effects of the Valorn miasma. An unstoppable force that can drive the Valorn back quickly means less Imperial lives lost and allows Imperial forces to return to the Empire's borders quicker. But that force does not have to be the Navarre, and it seems unlikely they could manage this by themselves anyway, given the scale of the threat arrayed against the Empire. The Dornish might be persuaded to send armies here. This would surely be an opportunity for glory. Perhaps inevitably, the views of the Highborn pilgrims who are marshalled here is that the Highborn armies could come in force to Broceliande. With the backing of the congregations of Highguard, they could attempt to take the region in a great crusading storm. What better time, what better place than here, than now, when an enemy the Synod has repeatedly called the greatest threat the Empire faces is weakened and vulnerable to attack. A few more level-headed folk point out that the Military Council is a notoriously cautious body. It may have a strategy for Broceliande. It may even be possible that it does not intend to take the field there at all. If that is the case, then clearly some pressure needs to be applied. Morgan of Harros proposes a mandate that the Highborn Assembly could pass, or even consider passing, if that would motivate the Military Council to more virtuous action. The monstrous infestation that is the Valorn is a danger beyond any that now faces us. There is no sacrifice too great that we cannot meet it to defeat this terror. We send named priest with 25 doses of Liao to urge all Highborn soldiers to put aside all other conflicts until Broceliande is free. Synod mandate, Highborn Assembly. If this mandate is enacted, then Highborn armies will receive a 10% penalty to take territory when fighting anywhere except Broceliande. In addition, all Highborn military units will suffer a 1-rank penalty if they support any army except one that is campaigning in Broceliande. The effects of this will last for 2 seasons, until the start of summer 384 Year of the Empire. Similar mandates could be enacted by the National Assemblies of Dorne or Navarre, provided that one of their priests wished to propose them in the same manner an alternative mandate might be proposed. Further reading. Fall of Broceliande. Autumn 383 YE, Wind of Fortune detailing opportunities in Broceliande. Wither the Seed. A companion Wind of Fortune about the magical curse on Broceliande.